What is up, YouTube? This is Hypercon. You're at Seth with the Cat, back again for another video. Now, this week we're going to be doing a deck profile for what is unarguably my favorite deck, Dragunities. Now, I know I've done this deck several times already, however, this is the newest, most up-to-date version of it I have. And this one's kind of special to me because it incorporates another archetype that I actually really like, Red Dragon Archfiend. Yes, after High Speed Riders came out and we got that whole slew of new Red Dragon Archfiend support, I decided to see if I could tech it into Dragunities and make it work. And oh boy, does it. The deck is not 100% complete simply because King Calamity is not out. However, I will address that when the time comes. But for now, it is time to see what I am affectionately referring to as the Red Dragunity Archfiend. So, starting out this deck profile, we have the 1, 2, 3 mandatory copies of Dragunity Ducks. If you guys haven't played against Dragunities, what he basically does is that he can equip a level 3 or lower Dragon-type Dragunity monster to him from the graveyard when he is normal summoned. He also gains an extra 200 attack for every Dragunity card on the field, himself included. This guy is one of the most important cards in the deck. You need 3 of him. He makes the deck work. We'll get more on that in a second. Next up, we have 2 copies of Legionnaire. I normally only run 1 of him, but for how the deck works now, it's a little bit more important for me to be able to actually run the extra Legionnaire, just because there are some level 5 synchro monsters that I do actually use. So while he's a little bit unconventional for me, he does actually do the job kind of nicely. Plus, I am still a big fan of the Legionnaire Atlas combo, which I will show you guys a little bit later on. Now, next up, we have the 2 copies of Dragunity Corseska. Now, this is a new card for the deck, or at least for this present build, and the reason for it is actually because of how the Red Dragon Archfiend cards work. Now, again, I'm going to have to kind of come back to this one, but for the most part how it works is that I just need a bunch of low-level tuners. To that end, I also have 1 Brandistock. The Brandistock is also in here for OTK purposes. What he does is that he can, when equipped to a monster, allow it to attack twice during that battle phase. Corseska's effect is irrelevant. I never really use it. I mean, I can. It's basically a searcher, so if it's equipped to a monster and I attack and destroy with the equipped monster, then I can add a level 4 or lower monster with the same type and attribute. But again, I never use it, so it's not really that important. Next, we meet the other most important card of the deck, 2 copies of Dragunity Phalanx. Now, this card is important because he is a tuner. All the low-level dragons in this deck are tuner monsters, so that's relevant. He also has the effect of once per turn while he is in the spell trap card zone while equipped to a monster, you can special summon him. Now, that basically is what gets the Dragunities their synchro engine, because it's a very synchro-heavy deck. Pretty much summon ducks, get Phalanx from graveyard, Phalanx special summon itself, and you go into a 6-star synchro, more than likely Vajrayana. We'll meet him a little bit later on. And to round off our tuners, we have 1 copy of Dragunity Atlas. Now, like I said, a thing I like to do with him is what's called the Legionnaire Atlas combo. If I can find him, there you are. To do is, he does basically the same thing that Dux does, which is where when he normal summons, he can equip a level 3 or lower Dragon-type Dragunity monster from the graveyard onto him. Now, he can also send one Dragunity card from the spell trap card zone to the graveyard to select 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and to destroy it. Now, if he has Atlas equipped to him, that causes a funny little combo to happen, because when Atlas is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you destroy 1 card on the field. Target and then destroy 1 card on the field. Now, the only thing that's tricky about him is that his effect is mandatory, so if someone sets that off prematurely, or if you don't actually pay attention to what is going on, he will blow something up against your will, so just bear that in mind. It's Not often that a situation like that comes up, but it does come up, so it's just something you gotta kind of be mindful of. And finally, to round off the Dragunity lineup, we have 3 copies of Arma Mistletoe. This is kind of a weird card because people tend to run him at either 2 or 3 depending on how you want to do it. In my case, it actually kind of benefits me to have him at 3 because I'm trying to go for a lot of 8-star synchros a little bit easier, and he just kind of does that nicely. How he works is that you can special summon him by sending one face-up Dragunity monster you control to the graveyard, and then when he is normal or special summoned, which is different from the other two, you can, target a Dragon-type Dragunity monster in your graveyard and equip it to him. He doesn't have a level limit on that one, so you could technically equip another Arma Mistletoe to him if you really wanted to, but there's really no purpose to that. You pretty much are always going to be getting the tuner monsters because they're the most important ones to equip. He also makes for some very interesting rank 6 plays, since you can just summon a Phalanx, send that, special summon him, equip Phalanx, special summon it, send him again, get out another one. There's a lot of interesting combos you can do with these guys. They're pretty versatile. The only reason that you might want to run him at 2 instead of 3 is because he can be a bit cloggy, but he's been working pretty well for me at 3, so until the time when he doesn't work for me at 3, I'm just going to keep him at 3 for right now. Now, for the other monsters, we have one Garuda the Wind Spirit, simply because he is a level 4 Winged Beast non-tuner monster who's pretty easy to special summon. You can banish a wind from your graveyard, and boom, there he is. I also run one Harpy Harpist, since when she is sent to the graveyard during the end phase of that turn, you can add one level 4 or lower Winged Beast monster with 1500 or less attack. Basically, she searches out ducks for me, and I need to be able to search out ducks as quickly as possible. Like I said, he is one of the most important cards in this deck, and that's really one of the only ways I have to search for him. I'll show you in a second, for those of you who don't know. And then one Blackwing Zephyros the Elite, simply because if he's in my graveyard, I can bounce a card to bring him back again. Level 4 Winged Beast non-tuner monster. Very important. He just makes some kind of stupid combos, too. He's a decent card. It's almost required. And finally, one Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. Because this is a dragon deck, there's no real reason not to, and he is part of the big Wombo combo. But that's it for the monster count. I think it's about 20-ish something, I don't really remember. Anywho, now moving on to spells, we have my Pride and Joy, my 2 Dragon Ravines. You have no idea how happy I am that this card is back. This card makes Dragunities work. It was a royal pain to work without this card for as long as I did, but it's back up to 2. I'm happy with that. I would like for it to be at 3, but I'm not holding my breath for it. 2 is fine. The way this card works is that you have to discard a card to activate its effects, and you can either add a level 4 or lower Dragunity monster from your deck to your hand, or send one Dragon-type monster from your deck to the graveyard. Now, that second effect is what originally got this card banned, and it kind of pisses me off because most Dragunity players will only ever really use that effect once or twice, just to get Phalanx to the graveyard. Maybe Aklys. Honestly, you're not even really going to be... A lot of decks don't even really run Aklys. The main heart of the Dragunity engine is Ducks, Phalanx, Mistletoe. And you're really only going to need to send just a Ducks there, Phalanx, because he's really the only one you really need in the graveyard at all times. So you're really only going to be using this for searching primarily. So it just kind of got me a little bit miffed about it, but whatever, rant out of the way. Next up, we also now run 3 copies of Chicken Game. Since I do now have another field spell to slap on top of this thing, I really have no reason not to. It just kind of adds to consistency, and unlike Upstart Goblin, it is actually searchable through terraforming, of which I, of course, run 3. So that gives me faster access to my Ravines and my Chicken Games. Normally, I'd prefer to search out Ravine, but if I already have a Chicken Game in my hand, or if I already have a Ravine in my hand, then I can just search out the other one, no problem. It just kind of works out pretty nicely, really. It's having both of them, so I have search power and draw power that I can search out, it's kind of a nice thing. Next up, I run a card that not a lot of Dragunity players actually do run, and that is Dragunity Divine Lance. And I honestly feel like that's wasted potential, because this card makes for a hilarious OTK. I will show you what that OTK is a little bit later on, but basically what it is that if you get this and Brandistock equipped to your main Synchro monster, you can swing for 10,000 damage, and I see no real reason not to. The way this card works is that it can only be equipped on a Dragunity monster, and it gains attack equal to its level times 100, and is also unaffected by trap effects. Then, during your main phase, you can equip one Dragon-type Dragunity monster, tuner monster, from your deck to the equipped monster, but you can only do that once per turn. So he can be used just like to search out Phalanx real quick if you don't have one, or maybe even Ackless, since a Legionnaire can actually send Dragunity Divine Lance, as it is a Dragunity card in the spell trap card zone. Just kind of works out pretty funny like that. There's a lot of funny things you can do with this card. It's just a good card, and really no reason not to run it, at least in my opinion. Next up, we run one copy of Scarlet Security. Now, like I said, this is a Red Dragon Archfiend variant, so it makes sense I would run their Harpy's Feather Duster, just because they're not going to give us Heavy Storm or Harpy's Feather Duster anytime soon, apparently. So I got to figure out some other means of mass back row hate. And honestly, with Scarlight on the field, it's not, with Scarlight now being in the TCG, there's really no real reason for me not to run this. I don't personally have him yet, but even then, regular Red Dragon Archfiend is not a terrible enough card to validate not having this card. Though I prefer a Scarlight, honestly. He's just infinitely better. Anyway, I also run 2 copies of Dragon Shrine. Unfortunately, I don't have any normal monsters, so it's basically just a Foolish Burial for dragons. But like I said, I just need to get Phalanx in graveyard as quickly as is humanly possible, and preferably one of the level 1 tuners, but we'll get to that in a little bit. For the same end, I also run 2 Cards of Consonance. Every tuner in the deck is applicable for that, so that's 2 Phalanx, 1 Ackless, 2 Corseska, and 1 Brandistock. I could arguably run 3, but I don't really have the room for it, and with all the other means I have of getting them to the graveyard, like Dragon Shrine and Dragon Ravine, it just feels kind of pointless to run any more than the 2. It's worked out for me fine so far, so... There's also the 1 Foolish Burial. I like having this card in here too, just because, again, adds the consistency of getting dragons to the graveyard, but it can also help me get other cards to the graveyard that things like Dragon Shrine and Dragon Ravine can't, like Harpy Harpist and Zephyros the Elite. 2 cards that I definitely want to get into my graveyard, so it's helpful for that as well. The rest of my 1-0s, I have 1 Raigeki, because Raigeki, 1 Soul Charge, because Soul Charge, 1 Book of Moon, because Swiss Army Knife, and 2 Mystical Space Typhoons, because what if I need some spot removal, and I don't have my Scarlet Security yet, or I can't use it. And normally I do this one separately, but since I only have 1, my only trap card in the deck is a Bottomless Trap Hole, which I am debating replacing with a Grand Horn of Heaven once I get one. I haven't really gotten anything out of Dimensions of Chaos yet, so there is that, but that's it for the deck's main lineup. Moving on now to the extra deck. It's a standard 40-card main deck, and this is a standard 15-card extra deck. And like any standard Dragunity extra deck, we are of course going to run 3 copies of Dragunity Knight Vajrayana. This card is why this deck is even remotely as good as it is. Like all the Dragunity Knight Synchro monsters, it requires 1 Dragon-type tuner monster and 1 or more Winged Beast non-tuner monsters. So that's why I run things like Garuda and Zephyros, because they can make for invaluable non-tuners. And they're level 4, which works out nicely with Phalanx. So how he works is that when this card is Synchro summoned, you can target a level 3 or lower Dragon-type Dragunity monster in your graveyard and equip it to this card. Once per turn, you can send 1 equipped to this card to the graveyard to double this card's attack until the end phase. Now, normally that effect is not used. However, if you'll recall, I said there was a funny little OTK with this deck, and I think it's about time I showed you guys how that works. So, you bring him out, and you equip a Phalanx to him. You then activate Dragunity Divine Lance targeting him. He's now at 25. Activate that effect. You will then search out your deck for your Brandistock. You now have a 2500 attack point monster that can attack twice and is immune to traps. Finally, you will activate Vajrayana's effect to send Phalanx to the graveyard, and all of a sudden you now have a 5k beater who is immune to traps and can attack twice. You see what I mean? To me, that's worth it, and it hardly uses any resources at all. So, compared to their Wombo combo, which leaves them bone dry, this to me is a much better alternative. Plus, you also will, though that's not his primary use, Vajrayana is mostly used for a Synchro Ladder, which for those of you guys who don't know what that is basically when you Synchro Summon once and then use that monster for another Synchro Summon. What that's going to look like is Summon Ducks, Ducks Effect, grab Phalanx, Phalanx Special Summons, and you Sync 6 for your Vajrayana. Vajrayana will then equip Phalanx, Phalanx will Special Summon again since its effect resets, and you will then Sync 8. Simple as that. So this deck, while technically a level 6 Synchro deck, actually acts as a level 8 Synchro deck, really, which is why the the Red Dragon Archfiends work out quite so nicely. Next up, we have one copy of Guy Dirge. This card's pretty helpful because, again, he kind of works as a searcher. You can add a level 4 or lower Wing Beast or Dragon-type monster from your hand in order to, and then discard one Dragon or Wing Beast monster from your hand. So you can do that to add to your graveyard, search for a Ducks if you have something else to discard. It's just a pretty good card. Plus, 24 is actually one of the better ones for these guys. That's really it, though. There are other Dragunity Knights, but only one of them is really worth running with how the deck functions. You could argue some of the other ones, but it would require kind of a weird build, so yeah. Next up, we have one copy of Samsara, Dragon of Rebirth. Basically a monster reborn, generic level 5, so I can use Legionnaire, grab Phalanx, and Sync 5 into this guy. And 26 is pretty beefy, and should anything happen to him, I get a monster reborn. So I can't really think of any reason why not. So, next up we have pretty much a staple for any Dragunity deck. We have one Stardust Dragon. Now, to me, I kind of still prefer Stardust Dragon over Stardust Spark Dragon, just because he provides more long-term protection, if you will. Or not long-term, rather, but a bigger scope of protection, because he protects everything just by tributing himself. And then he just comes back to the end phase anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. As opposed to Spark, who can only protect one thing at a time. So, I don't know. To me, Stardust just feels a little bit more worth it. Plus, I kind of got like a soft spot for him, so there's also that. And primarily for showing off, I have one Try Dragin. This guy requires a Dragon-type tuner and one or more Dragon-type non-tuners, which, believe me, is actually stupid easy to do with this deck. All I need is just a Phalanx and any of my other level 8 dragons, which, as you've seen, I have quite a few. Plus, you know I have Red Dragon Archfiends coming up, so I have plenty to do that with. How he works is that on the turn that he is Synchro Summoned, also he can't be Special Summoned by any means other than Synchro Summon, but on the turn that he's Synchro Summoned, you can target up to 2 other cards you control and destroy them, and then that will give him an extra attack for each card destroyed. So he can have upwards of 3 attacks on the turn that he is Synchro Summoned. Unfortunately, that doesn't last any longer than that, so he's basically just an OTK card as well. Just get him out, swing for 9k as best you can, and pretty much it. I apologize if you can't see this next card very well, but I also have one Star Eater. It's a ghost rare, so I do apologize for that. It's the only ghost rare I own, and he was just such a pretty card when you get him in the right light. I don't really think I even need to explain why I have him. He's just a good card. Star Eater is just amazing. Now we hit the meat of the deck, the Red Dragon Archfiend. To start things off, I have a Red Dragon Archfiend. Now again, I would like to replace him with a Scarlight because he still counts as a regular Red Dragon Archfiend and is just superior in every way, honestly, but I don't have one yet, so it's still just Red Dragon Archfiend. He's just kind of the base of the deck. He just kind of keeps it going. I require him to be out, so that's really all that is. Next, I also run one Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, just because he allows me to destroy all other types of monsters if they have something bigger than what Scarlight can get rid of, and Scarlight can only get rid of monsters with attack equal to or less than his own. Hot Red does not have that, so he can just destroy any type position monster, which is pretty helpful. Now we move on to the newer ones. We have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Now, for those of you guys who don't know how these new guys work, they require one tuner and one non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro monster. Now, obviously, that's implied that you're going to be syncing with Red Dragon Archfiend or any of its other forms. But you can also do it with certain other cards, like, I don't know, Samsara, who is also a Dark Dragon type Synchro monster. But I don't have any tuners big enough to go for that since he is 9, but semantics. So during either player's turn, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. No real cost, just doing it, and you can do it during either player's turn. So this card's pretty dang good. Also, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one tuner monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense mode. You can only do that. You can only use each effect once per turn. So the main thing with him is that he does kind of work as like a breakthrough skill, which is pretty cool. Actually, it's not even a breakthrough skill. It's just any card. You can negate things like a Fiendish Chain, a Tenki. You can negate anything your heart sees fit. And 32 is pretty darn big, so it's kind of hard to get past them. Abyss is definitely a very, very good card. But next up we have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane, who is a level 10, same summoning conditions, one tuner, one non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro. How he works is that you can tribute one monster you control, then target one Red Dragon Archfiend monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. It does not matter which one. You can use him, get back Abyss, get back Hot, get back Regular. You can get back any of them that you want. Then, when this card inflicts battle damage, you can special summon 2 tuner monsters with the same level, one from your deck and one from your graveyard. That's why I run 3 of each level, 2 and 1 for my tuners, so that I have access to anything that I need, just in case I have another Red Dragon Archfiend that I may want to get up to the highest level, or if I want to get him up to the highest level. I have my options, so that's how it works, and of course you only do it once per turn. Now, what is the highest level? Well, like I said, King Calamity doesn't exist yet, so for the time being, that means I have Red Nova Dragon, who even then is hardly a bad trade-off. He could arguably be a little bit better, but that is an argument for another day. He requires 2 tuners and 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, so in that instance I would be needing my level 2s, but again, I have 3 of them for that very purpose. Now, this card gains 500 attack for each tuner monster in your graveyard, and there are 6 tuners, so that's a lot of attack. Then, this card cannot be destroyed by the effects of your opponent's spell, trap, or monsters, so pretty much you have to beat over this guy, or banish or compulse him, one of the two. Then, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can select that monster and remove this card from play and negate the attack. Then during the end phase, this card is special summoned back. So he's kind of like a Stardust, but for attacks. He is immune to destruction from any card effect, and he gets stronger for every tuner in the graveyard. Plus, with how the deck works with the new Red Dragon Archfiend stuff, it's not like he's that hard to get out to begin with. So this guy's pretty good. I've only ever gotten him out once, but even then, at that point it was game. There was nothing they could do about it. And I got him out first turn, too, mind you. So it's not like it's hard to get him out. It's just, it was never advantageous enough for me to do it. And to round off, I have 2 Xyz monsters, 1 Constellar M7, and 1 Atum. These are just standard things you'll find in any Dragunity deck. Atum is used to get out your Red Eyes Darkness Metal for the sake of your Wombo combo, and Constellar M7 can be used to recycle any of your previously used resources, or bounce a problem monster on your opponent's side of the field. And that's it. That is my Dragunity deck, or my Red Dragunity Archfiend, if you enjoyed that cute little name. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is this a cool build? Will it stand the test of time, or am I still wasting my time on these Dragunities? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Don't forget to also comment on my Facebook page, so you can keep up to date with any announcements I may have, or just let me know what you guys think. Also, like the video, subscribe to my channel, and until next time,